And the final aura type is the reflector. So the reflector is only about 1% of the population. They are very, very rare. They have absolutely no channels and they have no defined centers. So you see there's lots of little black and red lines and stuff all over the chart, but there's nothing that is connecting to create definition to any of the centers in either of these two examples. And any reflector chart that you look at, you'll see some, like this one has like the head center has absolutely no defined centers in it, and the heart center here has that. This one, only the heart center has absolutely nothing defined, and sometimes you'll see it where there'll be definition of the gates in individual centers, but there'll be no actual centers that are defined because there's no channels that are created. So the reflector aura is resistant and sampling, and this is protecting to them. So they have that undefined sacral, of course, because they have no centers defined, but it's just kind of like here and there. It's more like Teflon. Things just slide off of them a little differently. Now, yes, they absolutely can over-receive input or energy or anything like that, but they are very, very, very sensitive to their environment and to the people that are around them. And so living in the physical space that is most aligned for them and being in relationships that are most aligned for them is absolutely vital. Reflectors are very interesting. I've had several reflector clients that I've had worked with one-on-one as well as in group settings, and they are just really incredible. And it's really important not to assume that you know what they are. They are not people that have no energy at all. They don't just lay around and do nothing because they have no defined centers. In fact, a reflector can be one of the most energetic, authentically energetic people that you know, or they might be very quiet and slower movement. That really is just up to their personality and up to the individual gates that are here and how things are aligned. They have a high attunement that is just off the charts. They are a gift in that they reflect back to us how we are doing. They are literally here to just be delighted by the rest of us. We are knowing that we're doing well as a human race if our reflectors are happy. If that, about 1%. So details of a reflector is their strategy is to wait for a lunar cycle. This is really different than anyone else has. Like the generators, manifesting generators, and projectors all have a wait strategy. They have to wait for an invitation, wait to respond. The strategy for a reflector is to wait for an entire lunar cycle or more, right? So because as the moon moves throughout the whole zodiac in a 29.3 day rotation of a lunar cycle, it will activate all the different 64 gates. And so as it moves through all of those gates, it activates those and creates these temporary channels with the transits. Now, we're all affected by the transits happening in our human design, as well as, of course, astrology. But for reflectors, it is even more so because it doesn't make them have defined centers, but it can bring different connections within themselves and kind of light up and give a different flavor throughout the month. And so a reflector does really well if they track the moon cycle and they understand which parts of the moon cycle are going to impact them differently. Like when the moon moves into 5 degrees of Taurus, like that activates their mind and ajna, and all of a sudden they have clarity of thought, things like that are very, very specific and detailed. But a reflector would do extra well to be able to understand that lunar cycle and how it impacts them specifically. And so waiting for that lunar cycle to get that clarity. Now, they don't have to wait for a lunar cycle to eat, right? Like, of course, but for any big decisions, who to be within a relationship or where to move or what job to take or whatever, there is that lunar cycle. Now, they could have been initiating that cycle years ago and planted those seeds, and then it can take years to develop. And then by the time that they encounter what's right for them, they just know. But there is a lot of waiting. There's a lot of patience with that lunar cycle strategy. Now, their signature of how they know they're living true to themselves is surprise. They will be just like surprised. They'll be like, oh my gosh, that worked out. I also see this as delight. They'll just be delighted. And that's literally what they're here for, is to just be surprised and delighted. How lovely is that? And then their not self theme is disappointment. They'll just be so profoundly disappointed when things don't go well. And so if a reflector is just trying to push their way through life, or to force things to happen, or they're in an unhealthy relationship, or they're living where they know isn't right for them, or whatever, they're going to be perpetually disappointed. I have definitely encountered reflectors that are not living a very aligned and high vibration life. They're in relationships with people that are maybe not super supportive, or even could be straight up abusive or neglectful. And they're just not living physically where they're supposed to live. And they are some of the most miserable, repelling people I've ever met. And then I've also met reflectors who are just so lovely, and you just like want to be around them and talk to them more and all of that. They just have a completely different vibe about them. And I've just been able to know many, many different kinds of reflectors. And I feel very blessed for that, because they are such a rare part of the population. But my energy just draws in a lot of different people in how my astrology and human design works. I'm constantly attracting large numbers of people. And so that allows me to get to know many different kinds of people. And I have the privilege of running so many people's different charts. So it's not just that I'm feeling their auras, like I know what they are a lot of the time, because I've run their charts and even been able to have a full session and really break things down with them. I've also had many sessions where I've done couple sessions with a reflector explaining the reflector to their spouse, because their spouse is like, I don't know how to explain this to them. Could you please just help them understand? Because it is so specific. And because it's so rare, often reflectors feel this deep confirmation that of course they would be a reflector. They feel alien, or they feel like they don't really belong because of that resistant and sampling aura that is just so distinctively different. And I also have met many people that are like, oh, I'm definitely a reflector, before they've even run their chart, or they're like, oh, my chart says this, but that's not me. You may still be very unique, of course. Every single one of us is really unique, but for the reflector to understand their aura type and what that means for them and what it doesn't mean for them can be really, really freeing. So if you have a reflector in your life, or if you are a reflector, I hope that this gives you even more insight, and also the different parts and pieces. Some of them will be even more important because there aren't those defined centers to pay attention to, especially going through each of the different centers and looking at the definition and lack of definition in each of the centers.